The animal of the day, June 20th, is the Asian giant hornet or the binomial name Vespa mandarinia. Type: eusocial wasp. Diet class: omnivore. Average lifespan: workers 1 to 2 months. Males: a few weeks. Mated queens: up to 1 year. Size: worker length 1.4 to 1.8 inches or 3.5 to 4.5 centimeters. Queen length: up to 2 inches or 5 centimeters. Wingspan: up to 3 inches or 7.6 centimeters. Weight: workers 1.422 grams. Queens: up to 4 grams. Population status currently June 20th, 2025, not evaluated. Population estimate: unknown. Native lands: East and Southeast Asia. Primary habitat: deciduous and mixed forests, montane regions, and agricultural areas. Main predators: bee-eaters, corvids, crested honey buzzards, badgers, raccoon dogs, larger wasps and hornets, praying mantises, and dragonflies. Diel activity: diurnal. Species age: at most 10 million years old. Male name: drone. Female name: queen for reproductive female or worker for sterile females. Young name: larvae after hatching and pupae after larval stage. Collective noun: a swarm, nest, or colony. Notes: the Asian giant hornet, also known as the northern giant hornet or the Japanese giant hornet, is the world's largest hornet native to temperate and tropical East Asia, South Asia, mainland Southeast Asia, and parts of the Russian Far East. The Asian giant hornet was also found in the Pacific Northwest of North America, specifically concentrated in the Vancouver area along with neighboring states and Canadian provinces. In late 2019, with additional sightings and nests found in 2020 and 2021, prompting concern that it could be an invasive species. However, in December of 2024, the Asian giant hornet was announced to have been extirpated from these regions, as well as from the rest of the United States, and no new detections have been reported since then. The Asian giant hornet has an orange head and brown antennae with a yellowish-orange base. The eyes and ocelli are dark brown to black, and it is distinguished from other hornets by its pronounced clypeus and large gennae. The Asian giant hornet possesses an orange mandible that contains a black tooth that it uses for digging, a dark brown thorax, and gray wings. The abdomen of the Asian giant hornet alternates between bands of dark brown or black and a yellow-orange hue, with the sixth segment being yellow. Within 2 days of the initial 2020 new report on the Asian giant hornet in North America, as previously discussed, insect identification centers in the eastern United States, where the hornets do not occur, began getting identification requests and were swamped for the next several months. However, none of the thousands of photos or specimens that were submitted were actually Asian giant hornets and were instead mostly wasps such as the European hornet, the eastern cicada killer, or the southern yellow jacket. The Asian giant hornet has a very wide distribution that includes the southern parts of Primorsky Krai and Khabarovsk Krai plus Jewish Autonomous Oblast of Russia, Korea, mainland China, Taiwan, Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, Myanmar, Vietnam, Nepal, India, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Malaysia, and Japan. The nesting cycle of the Asian giant hornet is fairly consistent with that of other eusocial insects, with 6 phases occurring in each cycle. The pre-nesting period, when inseminated and uninseminated queens enter hibernation following a cycle with there being a dominance hierarchy between the queens, where the top queen is fed first and then going down until the last queen is fed at a poor hour. The next phases are the solitary, cooperative, and polyethic periods, where the inseminated queens begin to search for nesting sites in late April. The uninseminated queens, however, do not search for nests and will continue to feed but will disappear in early July. An inseminated queen will begin to create relatively small cells in which she raises around 40 small workers, which do not begin to work outside of the hive until July, and the queen will participate in outside activities until mid-July, when the queen stays inside the nest and allows the workers to do extranatal activities. In early August, the nest is fully developed, containing 3 combs holding 500 cells and 100 workers. After mid-September, no more eggs are laid and the focus shifts to caring for larvae, and in late October, the queen dies. The final phases are the dissolution and hibernation periods, where males and new queens take on their responsibilities in mid-September and mid-October, respectively, during which their body color will intensify and the weight of the queens will increase about 20%. Male Asian giant hornets will wait outside the nest entrance until the queens emerge and will then chase after the queens to intercept them in midair to bring them to the ground to copulate. After which the males will return back to the entrance for a second chance, whereas the now mated queens will leave to hibernate, and once both queens and males leave the nest, they will not return. Up to 65% of queens will attempt to fight off the males and leave unfertilized, at least temporarily. Afterwards, the pre-hibernating queens will inhabit moist, subterranean habitats until the nesting cycle starts all over again. Aside from males, the Asian giant hornet possesses a stinger that is typically 1/4 of an inch or 6 millimeters long, and it delivers an especially potent venom that contains mastoperin, which is commonly found in many bee and wasp venoms. Mastoperins are cytolytic peptides that can damage tissue by stimulating phospholipase action in addition to its own phospholipase. Japanese entomologist Masato Ono from Tomigawa University near Tokyo described the sensation of being stung as feeling like a hot nail being driven into my leg. Besides using their stingers to inject venom, Asian giant hornets are apparently able to spray venom into a person's eyes under certain circumstances, with one report in 2020 from Japan resulting in long-term damage, though the exact extent of actual visual impairment still remains unassessed. In addition to the mastoperins, the Asian giant hornet's venom contains a neurotoxin called mandarinia, which is a single-chain polypeptide. And while a single hornet cannot inject a lethal dose, multiple stings can be lethal even to people who are not allergic if the dose is sufficient, and allergy to the venom greatly increases the risk of death. Tests involving mice found that the venom of the Asian giant hornet falls short of being the most lethal of all wasp venoms, having a median lethal dose of 4 milligrams per kilogram in comparison to the deadliest wasp, at least to lab mice, by weight belonging to its congener Vespa luxuosa at 1.6 milligrams per kilogram. However, the potency of the Asian giant hornet's sting is due, rather, to the relatively large amount of venom that is injected. The Asian giant hornet utilizes both visual and chemical cues as a mean of navigating itself and others to a desired location, and it was discussed that scent marking was a way for the hornets to direct each other to a food source, which would make it the only species of social wasp known to apply such a tactic. The Asian giant hornet secretes the chemical scents from its sixth sternal gland, known as the van der Waals gland, and it was found that this ability may have arisen due to the hornet's heavy reliance on honeybee colonies as its main food source, since a single hornet would be incapable of taking on an entire colony. Although the Asian giant hornet will also prey on other insects such as wasps, mantids, caterpillars, beetles, hornworms, and the body fluids of prey, along with plant material such as tree sap, fruit juices, honey, and nectar as well. Even if an Asian giant hornet has a damaged antennae, it is still able to navigate itself, but it was unable to find its destination only when vision impairment was induced, which implies that while chemical signaling is important, visual cues play an equally important role in guiding individuals. Another behavior of the Asian giant hornet is the formation of a royal court consisting of workers that lick and bite the queen, thereby ingesting her pheromones. These pheromones directly communicate between the queen and her court, or indirectly between her court and other workers due to the ingested pheromones. However, this is merely speculation, as no direct evidence has been collected to suggest such an ability. In an experiment observing for different species of Vespa, the Asian giant hornet, the black-bellied hornet, the European hornet, and the yellow-vented hornet, it was the Asian giant hornet that was the dominant species. Multiple parameters were set to determine this conclusion. The first set was observing interaction-mediated departures, which are defined as scenarios where one species leaves its position due to the arrival of a more dominant individual, with a proportion of this parameter being the lowest for the Asian giant hornet. Another parameter that was tested was attempted patch entry, which is a behavioral metric that records how often an individual or species tries to enter a contested resource area or feeding site, the patch, especially when another species is already occupying it, and the result was that conspecifics or interactions with the same species resulted in refused entry far more than heterospecifics or interactions with different species, indicating that the Asian giant hornet successfully entered and stayed in the patch than the other 3 hornet species, proving that it was again the most dominant. The last parameter that was measured was observing fights between these hornets, along with drone beetles, Goshkovich's labyrinth, and small wood nymphs at sap flows. And it was observed that the Asian giant hornet was once again the most dominant species, with one study having a total of 57 separate fights, with the hornet only losing 1 time to a Goshkovich's labyrinth, giving the hornet a win rate of 98.3%.